From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now here are Hotline editors Chuck Todd and John Mercurio.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Todd.
It's true. Yeah, and I'm John Mercurio. Welcome to Hotline TV. All right, the final polls closed about 9 hours ago, and we've been up since early yesterday morning reporting on the races. That's the sad truth. All right, Montana and Virginia hang in the balance as we speak, Chuck, but what else do we know?
Well, I think we're trying to find out, was this a good night for the Democrats, or was it, is Tuesday going to be remembered as a great night? I mean, I think
I read that somewhere.
I think we're waiting to see if Allen can make up any ground when they do the canvassing
Right.
of all the machines and all that stuff. It seems as if Webb has the advantages in that. Look, whenever you're in recount mode, you always want to be the one ahead because we all know it's
Sure.
impossible to catch the person.
For 100 different reasons.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to be the one that's the sore loser. You don't want to be the one
Exactly.
who has to,
I think there'll be some resolution soon on this one, and then you have Montana, which this one seems to be closing rather rapidly, and maybe ends up being the real problem. Are you that punchy?
Chuck Todd
Are you that punchy?
is that sleepy, and
Yeah.
I am that punchy. Yes, I would have to agree with you about both of those things. Who would have thought that it would be these two that we were waiting up for? I mean, I kind of went into
Brian
this, I
Nick
think,
was obsessed with the
I
firewalls
thought
that
Virginia was going to be much, much farther along. I
So
thought
did
that the same-sex marriage amendment was going to bring out black voters who were going to vote for the amendment and then vote for Webb against Allen.
Webb-
Didn't seem to happen. He didn't do as well
What-
in Richmond as I thought he was going to do.
Well, what's interesting when you look at the numbers in Virginia is there was no gender gap. There was a major gender gap. Excuse me. There was no unnecessary bad Democratic gender gap. I mean,
Right.
Webb did as well with women voters as you're supposed to do if you're a Democratic candidate. Where he slightly underperformed, and the difference between I think what we thought was going to be a narrow but substantial victory was with black voters. Allen got 15% of the black vote, and that is a big deal.
Speaking of black voters, though, an interesting resistance, almost like a repudiation of some Republican dirty tricks yesterday in Maryland. Bob Ehrlich and Michael Steele putting out these voter guides, these quote Democratic voter guides that listed black Democrats who had quote unquote endorsed the Republican ticket. They hadn't done so.
Mm-hmm.
Steele losing by double digits, and Ehrlich losing pretty badly. The only the only incumbent governor to go down. Bad day for dirty tricks,
Look,
at least in the Maryland suburbs.
It seems to be the only places where Republicans were competitive or had a fighting chance were in the reddest parts of the country, or the reddish nature. I mean,
Right.
you look at Ohio; they were able to hold a bunch of House seats there.
Yeah.
Those were in Republican, but those were in more Republican areas of the state. If you look at the three closest Senate races turned out to be Missouri, Montana, and Virginia. Well, guess what? All three of them were states carried by President Bush. I think what we learned is the base Republican vote turned out. The problem Republicans had is they got slaughtered by independents.
They got slaughtered by independents, exactly. I mean, who would have thought that the Republicans would have held two of the three, I can really barely even enunciate, two of the three seats in Connecticut, most of the seats in New York, and still go on to lose
most
in
in
a big
Ohio.
way. Most in Ohio,
yeah.
exactly.
And we're up to 30, and it's possibly looking like somewhere around a 30, 31, 32 seat gain. Maybe it's 20 or 29, but
Right.
a substantial House gain. It was interesting. Campaigns mattered. That was one thing we learned. The candidates that prepared for this wave seemed to survive. They had a
Sure.
better chance at survival, sort of a 1 in 3 chance.
Well, some did, some didn't. Look, I think Nancy Johnson was prepared. I think she knew this was going to
No
be tough.
question.
I think
Clay
she
Shaw
was a
too,
strong
and I
candidate.
think Clay Shaw was prepared,
Right.
and he
And
still.
I think Ann Northup was prepared.
That's
I
one
think
I don't
Ann
think so.
Northup was-
I think it's interesting the way Ann Northup, Jim Leach, Melissa Hart, some of these people that just sort of got caught off guard. You know, they knew in the last 3 weeks this was a race, but they didn't really take it that seriously 3 months ago. And I think that showed. But, you know, we're getting into the weeds, and there's one thing that we're ignoring, and that this is a Republican Party that got bushwhacked. This is all about President Bush.
You just wanted to say Bush.
I did, but this is all about President Bush. And I think,
And Iraq.
and Karl Rove and Iraq and President Bush. I mean, literally, we can
Although-
go state by state and show you wherever the president traveled, things got worse for the Republican Party. He was in Missouri,
Except
numbers went
Montana.
down.
Come on, he went to Montana,
And I think
Burns'
no,
numbers went up. after
and
he
there's
went
an
to
argument.
Montana.
There's some Republicans who were saying actually his numbers went down in Billings.
I don't know about that.
All right, fine. You don't have to know it. Well, there you go. That's going to do it for today's episode. We're a little punchy. We probably missed half the things we should be talking about, bottom line is it looks like this was a pretty impressive night. That 2006 will be known, will go down in history as 1994, as 1982, as 1974, a real substantial election result. Something we don't always get in a midterm election, John.
That's exactly right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow to talk about the election's best surprises. Until then, I'm Chuck Todd.
See, that's how tired he is. And I'm John Mercurio. We'll see you next time on Hotline TV.